What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video. In this one, we're talking about 6 FPL differentials for your Game Week 1 squads to consider. Now, I know what you're thinking. In some of your tips videos, you've said, do not chase differentials, and I stand by that. But if you can get a good player that's also low owned, even better. It's not chasing differentials for the sake of it. And of course, there's plenty of people out there that just like taking a bit of a punt, going against the crowd. So this kind of video is for you. There's 6 in total, like I said. Wait till the end and let me know what you think of them. So first up, we got Digne, owned by 6.6% of all FPL managers. And I know Twitter isn't necessarily representative of the whole FPL player base, but I've hardly seen this guy mentioned at all. And if you look at the prospects based on last season, in all defenders, only Trent Alexander-Arnold created more chances across the whole of last season. He had a 0.2 expected goal involvement, which I know it sounds low, but of course he's a defender. You can also get points from clean sheets as well. But 0.2 is roughly an attack and return every 5 games. So over the course of the season, it's nearly 8. And that's exactly what he got, 8 assists, which is a pretty good return from a defender. Now, in terms of defensive prospects, because I don't think many people are really backing the Everton defence. They were the 7th best team across the whole of last season for expected goals conceded. So the underlying stats are looking pretty good for them as well. Not too far behind Liverpool. They were behind, but not by too much. And everyone obviously looks to Liverpool defence as a good source of clean sheets. Now, the fixtures are looking quite good as well. Spurs away, first day of the season, fairly tough. West Brom, Crystal Palace, Brighton at home to follow after that. So a pretty nice opening run of 4 fixtures for him. And obviously, even if he doesn't get a clean sheet in the Spurs game, you'd hope that he'd maybe get an attack and return instead. And I do think with Everton, I'm going to talk about them a bit later as well, I do think signings will play a big part in how well they do. I think they do need some new signings, especially in midfield. I've talked about that before. But if that happens, I think defensively and attacking-wise, it could be a good outfit under Ancelotti this season. So I certainly wouldn't write them off at all. I think his creativity is there. We saw 8 assists last year. I think he can get somewhere close to that again. Maybe chip in with the odd goal here or there as well. A few clean sheets, especially in the opening 4 game weeks of the season. A decent price. The only concern with him really is he's 6 million. And looking at how most people, or a lot of people's drafts are kind of shaping up, don't really have a spot for a 6 million defender. Maybe people are looking at Doherty, double Liverpool defence, whatever it might be. So it could be quite difficult to fit him in, but in terms of differentials, he's right up there. So straight away, let's just say this wholly depends on whether he is nailed. But Reece James, owned by 3.6% at the time of recording this, is an extreme potential differential. Now, if he doesn't play, if Azpilicueta plays right back, Chilwell plays left back, then obviously he's no good. But there is a chance that maybe they play 3 at the back. They've got enough centre-backs to do that. Could play, Azpilicueta as one of the centre-backs alongside Thiago Silva, alongside another centre-back with Chilwell and Reece James on the wings. Potentially he just plays right back for a few games. He's not going to be one of these players that's get 38 games this season. They just have too many other options, but extremely attacking fullback, still very young, room for improvement as well. And Chelsea's fixtures are pretty decent. Game week 2, obviously the standout, Liverpool at home, not fantastic, but Brighton, West Brom and Crystal Palace outside of that. And if you look at the underlying stats, and I know some people don't like stats, but hear me out. Open goal, expected goals conceded last year, they were the 2nd best team over the course of the season. Now, of course, everybody looks at the Premier League table, they see how many goals they conceded. It was over 50, which was far behind the likes of Man United. But if you look at the underlying stats, they were probably a little bit unlucky to concede that many. They were actually one of the best defences in the league. Now, of course, some of that is down to Kepa, who is a problem, but he's not that bad that they would then go and concede that many goals. Some of that is just down to maybe a bit of bad luck, maybe a little bit of extra good finishing against them at times, whatever it might be. If they played that season again, they probably wouldn't concede as many goals as they did. So from a defensive point of view, I think they offer really good potential value. Chilwell, 5.5%. He's obviously quite lowly owned because he's injured. But Reece James, if he gets that right back spot, 5 million is so cheap. They're going to get so many clean sheets. And he's got attack and returns to boot. We just got to see if we get any kind of indication from pre-season that he's going to be first choice when the season starts. So I am cheating a little bit with this one because Man United, of course, blank in Game Week 1, so Rashford won't play. But this is players for your Game Week 1 squad, and Rashford will play after Game Week 1. Now, of course, at the time of recording this, there is all talks about this injury, like he's come out of the England squad because of an injury, but I would have a feeling that's maybe one of those kind of injuries where, okay, you're not fit enough for the kind of national team, but you want to be ready for the start of the season for your club. Now, obviously, we'll have to wait and see if there's any updates on that, what Solskjaer says closer to the season. But if he is fit, great differential, 6.3% owned. Out of all of the main attackers at Man United, so him, Greenwood, Fernandes, and Martial, he is the lowest owned. I'm surprised at that because arguably he could be seen as the best attacker out of all of them. Now, he's obviously 0.5 million more from Martial, but they've switched positions. So Rashford's gone in to be a midfielder. He's now going to pick up extra points for the clean sheet, extra points for his goals as well. Martial's going to lose that, but of course gain a little bit for bonus. But I don't think that's going to make up enough where he's the better option. If you look at non-penalty expected goals, because I know if you look at expected goals, Rashford did get a lot of penalties last year, which he's probably not going to get this year. But even if you look at non-penalty expected goals, he was still higher than Martial for the whole season. His creativity was better as well. Obviously, he was injured for a section of that as well. Still managed to score 17 goals and get 8 assists as well. Even if you rip the penalties out of that, it's still an extremely good return. So a lot of people, or a few people have slated me for not talking up Bruno Fernandes enough, saying that he overperformed last year. I think it's clear that he did overperform. That doesn't mean that he's not going to perform well again and get FPL points. Like, no one is saying that. He's got penalties, he could get lots again. He does create chances from open play. He does get into the box. But if he performed from an underlying stats perspective for the same that he did last season, he wouldn't most of the time score as many points as he did. Like I said, it doesn't mean that he can't get points, but you're talking about 10.5 million. Now, in the drafts that I've put together, that's been extremely hard to do. So straight away, I'm thinking, well, I can save $1 million, get Rashford. He's only 6.3% owned. That's absolutely crazy. I think he's one of the best options. Obviously, you've got Greenwood as well, higher owned for good reason. He's much cheaper and easier to fit in. But I think Rashford's 2 million extra for good reason, because even if we sign a right winger, potentially like Sancho, to replace Greenwood, Rashford's still going to be in the team. So 6.3% owned. Yes, he doesn't play, but if you've got a strategy where you're going to bench a United player and then play them from game week 2, Rashford looks great. Harvey Barnes, a little bit of a favourite of mine, 4.4% owned. Now, one of the reasons he's a favourite of mine, for anyone that didn't watch last year, I owned him when he got 19 points in a single game, which was absolutely incredible. And I think he's still often overlooked ahead of Maddison. Now, maybe you're not looking at Leicester at all. And obviously, Maddison is potentially injured for the start of the season. So we're going to have to keep an eye out for that. And if he is, I think overall he makes Leicester team, better when he's in it. So if he's out of that team, Leicester, it's going to be detrimental to what they can do at the start of the season. But hopefully he wouldn't be out too long. But if you're saying that everyone is fit, you can go for Barnes or Maddison. I think there's a lot to like about Barnes. Now, the one reason everyone goes towards Maddison is, of course, set pieces. He takes all the free kicks pretty much, takes all the corners pretty much, and that can be a source of points. Although, ultimately, he creates a lot of chances, but in terms of quality, it's not necessarily that easy to get assists from corners. It does happen from time to time, but it doesn't probably happen as often as people think. And the reason I like Barnes, if you look at the underlying stats again, expected goals involvement, very similar between the two, but Barnes is higher, and more importantly, a lot of his numbers come from expected goals as well. So in terms of open play chances, he does get more in front of goal, which you'd expect, right? He's playing usually on the left of a 4-3-3, and Maddison's a little bit further back, or a 4-2-3-1, or a 4-1-4-1, whichever formation Leicester play at the time. But ultimately, Barnes is further forward. He's getting into the box more chance for scoring goals. Now, I will say, having watched Barnes quite a bit, he's not the best finisher. So sometimes he does get these chances and does miss them like on the regular. But at the same time, 6 goals, 10 assists in just 2,000 minutes last year. That is a good return. I don't see why he wouldn't be starting the season. Again, we're going to have to look at pre-season as an indication to who's going to start. But if he does for 7 million, West Brom, Burnley, West Ham in the first 4. If I had a £7 million midfielder slot right now, and I thought everyone was going to start, of course, players like Foden and Jota might be good, but Barnes has got a realistic chance of starting most weeks. The only downside, I would say, for him is you can look at things like expected goals per 90 to compare him to Maddison, where he comes out better. But Maddison, for example, will pretty much always play 80 to 90 minutes every single game. The same can't be said for Barnes. Sometimes he might lose his place. Sometimes he might come off after 60, 70 minutes. And you've kind of got to part with that and hope he's got the points in, points in before he's been subbed. But ultimately, I like him as a player. I think the fixtures are good if you need a £7 million option. I don't think there's a huge amount of players around that price to choose from. And he's low owned as well. And if Maddison's fit, Leicester could be off for a good start. So I won't go over too much old ground with Calvert-Lewin because I feel like I've spoke about him quite a bit in the last week. So for those of you that have been watching every video, you'll have already heard me talk about him. But ultimately, one of the reasons I like him is I like my players to be getting goal chances, right? So that's why I like Barnes ahead of Maddison. Maddison going to get you a few assists, but Barnes is getting the goals, and that's usually where the bigger points come from, because you get 5 points for that. Same for a striker, 4 points for a goal, only 3 for an assist. And someone like Calvert-Lewin gets a lot of chances. And again, I've spoken about this already. Post-lockdown, not great, but pre-lockdown was really decent. There was 29 game weeks there versus just a very small sample size post-lockdown. And a bit like I said for Lucas Digne at the start, Everton signing some midfielders and overall their squad is looking better. They've got a really good manager there. Calvert-Lewin should be the #1 striker. Even if Richarlison kind of moves or they change formation, you'd expect Richarlison to move maybe to like a left-sided position, maybe the left of a 4-3-3 or the left on a 4-2-3-1, whatever it might be. But you'd expect Calvert-Lewin to be the main striker unless they happen to buy someone else. I don't think that Moise Kean is suddenly going to overtake him. The one concern for me is his price tag, 7 million. Is he actually worth 0.5 million more than an Antonio or a Chris Wood? I don't think he really is, to be honest. But Antonio did come off injured in pre-season. We'll have to see if he's fit to start the season. It does sound like he probably will be. We'll have to wait and see. Chris Wood doesn't play in Game Week 1 either. And the beauty of having someone like Calvert-Lewin at 7 million, you can go to any of those 6 or 6.5 million players. And if you do, you've saved a bit of money as well. In the meantime, you've given him a chance against West Brom, Crystal Palace, Brighton, hoping he can get something against Spurs as well. From someone who had a lot of shots last year, a lot of decent chances as well, and converted them to get 13 goals over the course of the season. It was quite a few minutes, 2,600, but 13 goals is a pretty decent return for someone that's only priced at 7 million. So I like him. Currently only owned by 5% of all managers. I wouldn't expect that to climb hugely by the time Game Week 1 comes along. If they sign a good few midfielders and maybe strengthen in other areas of the pitch, I really would keep an eye on Everton. And last up, we've got Eddie Nketiah, only 1.4% owned. So I think he's the lowest owned on this whole list. Now, from everything we know from last season, the Community Shield, it does look like he's slightly ahead of Lacazette in the pecking order when it comes to playing through the middle. Aubameyang is still lining up on the wing, so he's playing on the left. They got someone through the middle, which seems to be Nketiah more often than not, and then a player for the right, whether that's Saka, William, Pepe, whoever it might be. So unless Lacazette suddenly starts getting loads more minutes, and to be fair, he did towards the end of last season, but that did kind of coincide with Nketiah getting suspended, which he probably didn't help himself with. But the fact he started that Community Shield game when they won it against Liverpool of all teams does kind of bode well for him starting the season. So I do think he looks good. My only issue, I guess, is that 100% going to happen? Is he going to have that striker role every single game week? And also, did he start against Liverpool because of the kind of player he is? Maybe he can press a little bit better than someone like Lacazette can. There's no kind of doubting that Lacazette can finish, but in terms of pressing, the way Arteta wants to play, it's good for Nketiah, but will he trust him to do that every single week? Will he kind of be a bit like a Pep? Not overthinking different fixtures, but thinking a lot about them and changing his tactics, changing his players to fit different systems for different games. So that's the only thing that will worry me. But a bit like Aubameyang, of course, he has the same fixtures. So Fulham away, West Ham at home to start. You could potentially go for someone like Nketiah at 6 million and then maybe look to switch. And again, unless they go up in price, there's a lot of options at 6 million. Adams, Ayew, Rodrigo's just been priced at 6 million as well. There's plenty of options, Mitrovic too. So you could go for someone else once you've seen them play and kind of take a risk on Nketiah for the first 2 game weeks. It is a differential punt. I'm not saying it isn't. There's a reason he's owned by only 1.4% currently. But for those of you that like to take a punt, it could be a decent one. So that's it for this video. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments below what you think of my choices, but more importantly, who are your differentials that not only do you think will do well, but that are currently in your team. So on this list, for example, I'm still looking at Harvey Barnes as a potential option, and Calvert-Lewin is in my current draft. So it's not like I've just plucked these players out of thin air. They're genuine options. If I was going for a Man United player as well, like if I could find 0.5 million extra, maybe I'd even do Son to Rashford too. So plenty of players on this list to consider. Let me know yours below. If you enjoy this type of content, please do give it a like. Let's get to another 1,000 likes on this video. And of course, if you are new around here, please help me hit 100,000 subscribers. Just hit that subscribe button. It doesn't take 2 seconds. That'll really help me out. And obviously, it will let you know when all the other videos are going live. Spoiler alert, there's another one tomorrow and loads throughout the season as well. So make sure you hit subscribe, hit that like button, leave me a comment below, and I'll catch you tomorrow for another video.